Hello there, patrons, and welcome back to another Patreon exclusive tutorial. I haven't done one of these in a while, but you deserve it. In this one, we're going to be talking about chain link fences, which is something that I've been trying to make for a while, but just couldn't figure out. But now I've figured it out. So here's what it looks like. We have a chain link fence preset. It's completely procedural. If we zoom in here, you can see these are actual chains that weave together, and they end the way they're supposed to. And it's completely driven by a curve. So you can kind of define what your chain link fence perimeter is going to look like. Additionally, we have a slider for kind of like the resolution or the gaps in the chain, in some sense, the segments. So that's what we're going to be covering in this tutorial. If that sounds interesting to you, keep watching, and thank you for being a valued patron. So we're going to go into geometry nodes, delete everything, and make a geonodes group on the cube. Our core idea here, I should mention, how are we going to make the chain link fence procedurally, is we're actually going to weave spirals together, which kind of sounds weird, right? So I'm going to make these have a small radius, but a constant radius, so it doesn't get bigger or smaller, it's just 0.5. I'm going to take this and I'm going to flatten it on one axis, so I made it 10% what it was on the y-axis, 0.1, and the key idea here is if we make a copy of this and join it together by 180 degrees, I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to shift it. You can see how this makes one of the chains, and we can make that a constant ratio. You can see how this makes one of the chains of the fence, and these actually weave together, right? Also, if I was to increase the number of rotations and decrease the radius, which means we have to adjust like their gap, we get like a more chain link fence kind of scale. And we're just going to repeat this along a curve. That is the idea. So I'm not going to take this and repeat it. I'm actually going to repeat a single spiral. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to start off, I guess I should have started off with a Bezier curve. So let me do it like this. And then I'm going to delete this with the curve, make a geonodes group, and we're just going to use the last one. So now this is going to be with the root object of a curve. This is important because now we can do input. We can instance this along the curve. So I'm going to take my curve, make sure to resample it because right now it just has 2 handles. So let's say we have 10, or even we can make it proportional to length, however many points. And for each of these, we are going to instance on points this. So we have a bunch of spirals. Remember, we need every other one to be rotated by 180 degrees to make this work, and they're not rotated to go along the curve, really. So 2 issues. To solve the second one, we're going to take the curve tangent, and we're going to align it to that vector. So just plug that in there. And now you can see it's kind of subtle, but it's rotating so it flows along this thing, right? It's going to look at the tangent vector, right, this one, and it's going to say make the rotation such that it works here. So here is the before and after. You can kind of tell if we look closely here. And we need every other one to be rotated by 180 degrees. So to do this, I'm going to add, vector math add, so I'm doing a rotation. You can see this is the z, that's the spin we want. And I want it to be every other one. So how do we do that? We take the index of the spiral, so each one, we have an index 0, 1, 2, 3 as we go along the curve, the number of spirals. I'm going to take this, I'm going to run it through a modulo 2, and remember these are already integers, so it's going to work. So this is going to give us 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, so you can already see it's rotating every other one. And you want to rotate it by 180 degrees, which is pi radians. And that's kind of the essence of it, really. Now, all we have to do is kind of set this length such that these chains are barely touching, like that, and modify the height accordingly. And this is something you can make procedural. I'm just going to make a fence, a chain link fence, with a single height. Okay? To give this thing some geometry, I think we need to realize these. So that we can run, by the way, let me just go full screen. Should have told me I wasn't full screen. I'm realizing them so that I can do a curve to mesh operation. And we don't need that much geometry on these. Bring down the scale by a lot. until it's very thin. We could even make it thinner. So times 0.6. But you can see these are actually kind of weaving together. It's not perfect. To make it even better, you can like increase the Y scale, so there's actual gaps in between them. I'm going to keep it as is because I think it looks good from a distance, or not even a distance, like a fairly close distance. So we have this, but there is a bit of a caveat here. Chain link fences don't really go along curves. They're actually segmented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to resample this by length and pick a large length, and then resample it again. So what this is going to do is it's going to take our curve and kind of quantize it. So let me actually give it some more curve here. It's going to make it nice and jagged because it's only putting points for every large gap in length, and then we're dividing it again for the instances. This is going to make it so that it's more angular, but you can see it's still working, okay? Now, all we have to do is kind of put posts in the middle. You can model these. I'm just going to use a cylinder for now, but you can model good ones. So what do I mean? I mean, I can take a cylinder, and remember, this is our jagged curve. I can instance on those points, because that's exactly the corners of the curve, right? So if I look over here, you can see there's corners here, here, here. That's exactly the first resampled curve. So I'm going to instance on points a cylinder, and I'm going to join that together. So you can now see we have cylinders at these areas, and all I need to do now is kind of make them the right shape. So I'm going to bring down the radius. I'm going to transform them up by 1 unit on the z-axis. And then we can also scale it on the z-axis, or do I have to do that as a separate transformation? Let's try it as a separate transformation. There we go. So I'm scaling it up on the z-axis until it's roughly the right length. It goes a bit above. And again, you model this so it has like a nice cap and all this. So I'm just using a cylinder. And now we need a thing to kind of weave the top of this, which again is going to be an instance in some sense of this resampled curve. Not really an instance, but an example of it. So I'm going to run a curve to mesh on this, run it through a curve circle, and join that together and bring down that radius. So you can see now we have this cylinder that kind of goes along it. But you can see it's not at the top. That's a simple matter. We can just transform this on the Z. And this is kind of the essence of how I made the chain link fence. If you want to know how I made the segments here, I basically exposed this parameter that we're using. So you can have a highly detailed chain link fence or one with like a lot of segments. And notice this works with our curve, but it also works with closed curves, as you can see. So now you might be asking material. What did I do for the material? And I'm sorry my computer's so loud. For the material, I basically did something super simple. I applied a material to all of this. And by the way, here's the node network. It's going to be available. Since you guys are already top tier patrons, you can just download it. It's already going to be available, so don't worry about the nodes. For the material, I just used a standard material set to high metallicness and low roughness. That was kind of the essence of it. You're going to see this in action when I actually run this through something that it can reflect. So I'm just loading an HDRI in. And now you can see this is nice and metallic and reflecting everything. Depending on your fence, it might be rougher, or it might even be black. For example, I've seen chain link fences that are black. You can decide that for yourself. But that is really the essence of it. So let me expand the screen. That is how I make chain link fences. Hopefully this is useful to you. I'm using this as a asset in this new project I'm working on called Curvify, where I'm going to make a bunch of objects out of curves like fences, ropes, still trying to figure out what exactly. But there you go. Thank you for being valued patrons. Make sure to download the asset here, or the project file. And yeah, thanks for watching.